Thank you. Good evening. I'm calling to order the May 8th, 2024 meeting of the Southborough Zoning Board of Appeals. We do have remote attendance tonight. People have the option to attend in person or online. We have one item on the agenda tonight. Technically, it's two. The 120 Turnpike
That's right.
40B proposal. So I think we can go right to you.
Yes, thank you. Happy to provide an update. Again, I'm Brian Charvel with Ferris Development Group.
Mhm.
Here representing the applicant, FD 120 Turnpike LLC. As we've shared with your staff and you, Mr. Chair, there have been three things in front of the ZBA. Of course, the application for comprehensive permit at this property, 120 Turnpike Road. A request to modify the 2005 special permit to allow shared driveway access. And finally, and more recently filed, was an application to modify the 2019 special permit of this board relating to a parking garage that has not been built and won't be built like we talked about 2 weeks ago. So in the time since we were last together, we did appear before the planning board on a request to modify their 2019 permits. And as a result of the very informed feedback that we took from the planning board members, staff, and also members of the audience and interested constituents, the applicant decided to withdraw that modification with the planning board, which the planning board allowed. So in light of that, the applicant requested of this board to withdraw the request to modify your 2019 permit. We submitted that yesterday.
Mhm.
And that was filed by Ms. Davis with the town clerk. So with that withdrawal having been submitted, what remains before this board is the application for a comprehensive permit and the application to modify 2005 special permit. We've been talking extensively with Ms. Davis in the last couple of weeks about the status of this board obtaining quotes for peer review. And I understand, I think it was yesterday or today was the deadline for the last proposals to come in. And so we're optimistic about those being satisfactory to the board and the peer review portion of the comprehensive permit
Second.
move ahead.
Yeah.
Speaker, is there any way we can address, there's like a fan in the background? Yeah, it's very hard to hear. Thank you very much.
White noise is always a problem.
Yeah. He checked it before. I thought it was on. Yeah, it was on. Correct. His microphone.
How's this?
That was,
That seems better,
everything's
yeah.
much
That's
better.
We gotta be very close, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the white noise makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I was saying the update on the peer review, which Ms. Davis can speak to better than I, is that the proposals were due in the last day or so. And we're optimistic about that portion of the 40B review going ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
And sorry, to be clear, your request to the board tonight is you want to withdraw without prejudice the special permit that was going to modify, correct?
Correct.
20
Our request to
2019.
modify 2019. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Which will be consistent with the withdrawal that happened in front of the planning board.
Right. Understood.
And how things were left there substantively was the applicant is going back to the drawing board to look at alternatives that could allow both a 40B application to proceed and the land donation still to be made.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, who do you see that process going through, the modification that you're speaking of? Is that something to continue with the planning board or?
Well, I think that it likely will take this board and the planning board and conservation, just as the parking garage took in 2019.
Okay.
And I say that because what the applicant's considering is whether the 40B could somehow be located on the non-land donation portion of the lot,
Okay.
which mean, there's already the two existing office buildings and parking and a septic system that serves those buildings. And so depending on how it ends up being laid out, it may take relief from this board, relief from parking requirements, modifications to septic system. We're not sure yet, but we're trying to see if it all could fit.
Okay. That kind of leaves me in an interesting spot. So we do have peer review. As, just to follow up, we actually did receive, I think it was 4 total, proposals. 5.
Right.
5. Not all of them cover the same thing, of course, but as you would understand. But that's on what was submitted already.
Yes.
Now, but you're saying the applicant would like to review the overall site and say, well, is there a way to do this, have the 40B and the land donation at the same time? So that to me sounds like the plans would by necessity change.
We're looking at that, but we really need the 40B to advance in this board's consideration of what's been filed to advance.
Okay,
So we're going to try to make both work, but if we can, I mean, we've told Attorney Tallerman our position on this, that we disagree that the land donation is still required fundamentally.
understood.
And so, you know, we're trying to approach it in a way that where we can do both, but our fallback is that we'd like the 40B as drawn to be continue to be reviewed by this board.
So you want it to continue the way it is, but you will at the same time in parallel pursue this alternative approach that you're talking about?
Yes. But it's
Okay.
going to take, but you know, we're together on the clock in terms of the statute and the review period of 40B in action.
Mhm.
And so we don't want to continue to eat up that time while we take a pause while we work on concepts. You know,
Okay.
we have a drawing that's been in front of the board since December that we feel good about and feel like should be allowed.
Okay. All right, do you have an opinion on that, Jay, or is that really more with us?
Before I get to that, what have we done? You have extended the clock at least once, maybe twice?
Twice.
Okay, good. So,
We did that in conjunction with.
right, that's
Well,
right.
our engineer went back to the drawing board and responded to that initial December feedback.
Sure.
To make some plan changes.
Okay,
And so I think the clock is now August 31.
okay. All right, thank you.
Good.
So, and David and I talked about this a little bit offline. It's a peculiar, and I don't want to spend our time debating the issue here. Obviously, my position hasn't changed on the fact that that condition is binding. I don't think we should take the board's time necessarily debating it unless they want to see us do that. So the options for the board kind of exist along a spectrum ranging from, we have a problem right now that hasn't been fixed, so we're not going to move forward. That's option 1. On the other end of the spectrum, it would be, let's just move forward, not our problem, their problem. Let's move forward and just treat this like any other 40B. And then they're going to be left to figure this out on their own. Somewhere in the middle, there's all kinds of other little options that will keep you on a short leash. Let's go through this peer review, try and keep making progress on this, to something like, we'll grant, assuming it got to an approval and the engineers and everyone liked the project and the board liked it. Could be something like, here's your permit conditioned on you resolving this with the planning board. So any one of those options is workable. Nothing says that you have to, even though this is a significant roadblock, I think. And, you know, I give Brian and his team credit for trying to work with the planning board on this. Obviously, you know, it's a heavy lift, and I'm glad to see that they haven't abandoned those efforts and they're still working on it. Obviously, I saw a letter from the select board, still supportive of the project, obviously. So it could, you could go any way. You're not waiving the issue. If you decided to move forward, get the peer review done, obviously it's an expense that they're willing to bear that may not bear fruit depending upon where we end up, but you could keep it on that kind of, on that track for the time being. So it's really however you wanted to proceed. You're not losing any rights by moving forward. You're not losing any rights or objectives. I mean, I could strategize this to death as to what's best if this became an unmovable object, but it's not worth it. It's to try and wrap your head around how a likely path of litigation, which would likely spawn 2 or 3 different forms, is probably not worth our trouble here.
Okay,
So I think that the core decision for the board, and I'm happy to go over my opinion if you want, is that if you want to keep going, they obviously want you to keep going. They know there's an issue here. They know it's an issue that while they might disagree, that they're trying to resolve. They're not asking you to waive the issue.
right, okay,
They'd like you to probably. but
probably, yes.
There's no,
Right.
no one's making a demand. I've been in those situations where there's been a demand made, and that doesn't appear to be the case. So it seems to me like you still have a willing partner to work with in terms of straightforward permitting stuff while we hold this other issue in abeyance, if that's where you wanted to go. But you do have the right to say, I'm uncomfortable moving forward as well, given the cloud that's
Okay.
kind of hanging over this a little bit.
Okay, thank you. I think it's, I would like to just get the pulse of the board on this. As far as which way we would go. Mike, start with you.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I think it's pretty straightforward. This is the petitioner's project. It came before us. Hey, we're switching this on a relationship to the planning board. We want to, we're getting rid of the other plan. We're going to be using this plan going forward for the 40B. To me, I'm not going to get into the issues now as to the land donation. But at the same time, it's a situation where I don't think that's before us. To me, it's.
So where would you tend to lean here to continue as they're asking?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's their petition. I don't have an objection to that.
okay,
To me, there's this question with respect to that property in the garage. That's a totally separate matter. But to me, I don't have any objections.
okay. All right, Jamie?
So I 100% agree that I don't think we should be making any decisions on the 6.2 acres. I did listen to the planning board meeting from home.
you.
I don't think that's our role. Regarding moving forward, I won't say I don't have any hesitancy with that. And my thought is it's a lot of wasted time, our time, their time, and the people who take their time out of their evenings to come to these meetings. If we're talking about a proposal that essentially might get changed in a month or two. So that is a real consideration for me, honestly. Can I ask you guys how long you would think it would take to potentially look at your plans and come up with a new proposal if you are able to?
I think we'd have a concept this month. And I was gonna say though, timing wise, we'll come back as soon as the board's ready for us too. And I know a new date has to be set tonight. But I would think, there's an approach to peer review where it's like, engage somebody this week, pay them next week, and push them. And they could, I imagine, be ready to speak to you by the end of this month. Or we could not rush them. And if there's a set meeting date already for this board in June, maybe then there's in due course peer review coming in, and there's been ample time for the concept planning to occur. And so nothing's rushed.
I'm not sure I quite followed that.
I
We could
think
say
what,
tonight, it's May 8th. We want to pick, this board would naturally be meeting, say the last Wednesday of the month.
Right.
So we want to set that as the continued date. We could do that, but I think that would be rushing the peer review, initial review potentially. And it may be rushing the concept planning and getting feedback.
I guess what I'm saying, to me, it makes more sense to do the planning in 3 weeks or whatever it's gonna take you and then start the peer review. If you're able to change your plans, like why would we start the peer review when there may be a change of stream in a couple weeks?
Because it's not just getting the plan, it's then getting on the planning board docket, which they're fairly doctrinaire about in our experience. So it's not gonna be like, we have a drawing the last week of May and we're in front of them the same week or the week after.
No, I understand that. All right, my preference would be to not start peer review until we say we're going with the original plan, nothing's changed, or we have an updated plan. That would be my preference personally in terms of time savingness and just what makes sense to me. I will say I also did look at the maps again. And I was looking at the size of the garage that was originally proposed, and I give you guys credit for trying to make it work. 'Cause it seems to me like potentially it could work to move the 40B in that location. And I think that would make a lot of people happy and make the whole process a lot smoother.
In that sense, I think it was touched on the plan board being, but it is sort of a equally large structure
Mhm.
in the same general vicinity of the lot.
Can I just ask them out of clarity, are you also assuming that, because I'm not myself familiar with it, but the peer review process itself, like once you initiate it, it's gonna take a few weeks that we would take advantage of that time while you're redoing the plan? I mean, they would be doing peer review based on the existing plan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying simultaneous, that sort of, we would be advancing the 40B as drafted
Mhm.
and having that reviewed in due course. But we'd be looking at the alternative in the meantime.
So is that, and maybe the expectation is once they go through the peer review, maybe the update for them is, well, here's what we changed, and maybe there's some commonality in there that they can say they've already covered.
Yes. Yes. I mean, they're going to look, for instance, at the things that aren't going to change.
Like the traffic.
The
won't really
driveway,
change.
traffic,
Yeah.
right? It's going to be a similarly sized building. So like the flows in and out traffic wise, the count
Okay.
will not change. They'll look at the driveway, they'll look at the sidewalk.
Wetlands would be probably different, I would expect.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
And if the building moves down, then there would be far less effects
Mhm.
on the wetland and the hillside.
right, okay. Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
are you set, Jamie?
That's it for me.
Doug?
So very similar thoughts, but I don't have any issue with the withdrawal. So I don't have any issue with, selecting the peer review consultant at least, right? And, picking which one we want to use type of thing. I do think we might want to focus on, I was going to bring up the traffic and maybe the design first, because those things are relevant no matter what happens. I do feel like the civil engineering is a bit, we could be spending,
Right.
and wasting some time, but I would think at least for us as a group, if we're, for our neighbors and residents being here, I think, we want to probably focus on the topics that won't change.
Yeah.
So just to be efficient, I'm definitely supportive of you guys exploring alternate, locations to move it down off of it and try to achieve all of it. And, even if that, I mean, again, you need, approvals from other boards too as well. But the idea that it simply sits on one of the lower parking lots and you're doing shared parking, which again, during the day, the office is in and most of the residents are out. I think that's an efficient way for us to have less paved area. And if it achieves the donation still, that's great. So, anyways, but I do get concerned after we get through a couple of topics that we're going to be spinning wheels a little bit. And so I would encourage you guys to, try to work through your process as quickly as possible on that. So those are at least my thoughts.
Doris?
You can hear me? Great. So, on moving forward on peer review, I do not have issue with that. So I'd be in favor of moving forward as the two concurrent plans, the replacement plan could take place of the other plan. And I had, in my thoughts there to add new thoughts to the process, and I agree with Mike and agree with Doug, is that I had, listened in on a planning board meeting, and I think we might end up being in the same spot. It seemed, in my opinion, that there was a pretty big delta. And I'm very appreciative to know that there's going to be some rework of the plan, but there was a very great concern by the planning board. There was just a resistance to the project in general, which can place us in a non-negotiable status, maybe on the planning board side. And we have the timeline on the clock. And we might be back to the original plan. And I do think the ZBA and Jay Tollerman, you can, Attorney Tollerman, you can correct me here that it's gonna, I believe it's gonna be back at the ZBA, whichever path we went. So in that light, with adding something new, in favor of moving forward, I didn't immediately see any consensus of minds or even close to consensus of wanting to have the project at all in the entirety from different speakers at the meeting, or perhaps I missed some sidebar discussion, but I think I was there for the entirety of the meeting. In regard to withdrawing the application to remove the condition, I don't have any problem with that, except for I didn't believe our special permit, which has expired, had a condition, had a finding in it, which Doug had brought up very concisely a few weeks back. So just seems a little bit odd. We're removing a condition or a meeting note. I actually thought in the same lines as he did, but maybe I'm overthinking that. So I'm not going to be a stickler, but it seems why removing a condition that we didn't have on the special permit application. And just one other thought is the need for the 40B. There were some ideas, not just that lot, but other lots that could take the replacement of this particular project. And that's a long timeline. That seems like a good idea, but a very long timeline to get that in motion when our statute is saying we're behind on our percentage, which is a law to get a certain amount of units in. So those are my thoughts, David, and someone else can take the ball.
Well, I mean, specific to the request to withdraw without prejudice the special permit, I mean, that's regardless of what happened in 2019, they applied for a special permit. We need to take some action on it. So I think we need to dispose of that
Thank
anyway.
you. Yes, okay. So procedurally, we have to respond to the application. Functionally, it doesn't matter. Got it, David. Thanks on that.
Okay. You have something to add, Mr. Carter?
Yeah.
If you could,
I'm
no,
Paul
just
Carter.
identify yourself.
Yes,
please.
I'm Paul Carter, 6 Hillside Avenue.
Thank you.
And particularly,
Could I ask, are they different from what you passed out previously? Okay. Okay. I
Speak to
yeah.
the microphone.
I would like to ask you
yes,
one thing, though. I think what we're talking about tonight primarily is the withdrawal without prejudice of the special permit, and then sort of where we go from here.
Sure.
Obviously, what you've listened to, do we continue, do we not? I want to be careful not to go in too deep into the details of the project and start
Exactly.
hashing it out, because
That's not tonight.
I don't think we can do that tonight with all due
Sure.
respect. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate, and I think the board appreciates the issues that you highlight here, your obvious knowledge of the subject. So
sure.
go ahead.
So the issue of the preliminary subdivision is the basis is the problem. We don't have a lot yet, okay? Because we don't have the 6-acre lot. So that needs to be separated out. And it's not a big deal. You know, they just need to submit a preliminary subdivision that creates that 6-acre lot. And they just need to create a right-of-way that provides frontage for that lot. Okay, there's a sample in what I've submitted there of a preliminary subdivision plan. It defines the lot area, it shows the boundary lines, and they can look at the preliminary subdivision requirements of the town. So it's not a big deal. They need to do it, but what is a big deal is they have to separate the 6-acre lot, and that hasn't been done yet. And that's not new, and it's really not details. So my question is, you know, when is the developer going to submit that preliminary plan? Because it's required as part of the comprehensive permit, and it's required for these whole proceedings, and it hasn't been submitted yet. So that's one point. The second thing is the developer said that he was going to fly balloons so we could see the four-story building. I think it's very important that the ZBA, that the planning board, that the Conservation Commission see the height of the four-story building, okay? And once that's done, then we'll all be starting from the same page in terms of the impact of this building on the conservation land and whether a four-story building is actually appropriate.
Right.
The other thing, you guys have addressed the peer review. That's great. The other thing is that those are really the, oh, and I'm really glad to see that the idea of moving the building down into the footprint of the parking garage, I think that's great. That's a great compromise. And I think the only issue there would just be addressing the details of, is there enough parking? And the parking, if it needs more parking, it could be on the west side of the wetland, up the side of the hill, so that the donation would be a little less than 6 acres, or it could be relief in terms of parking. So I'm very heartened to see that it may be possible to have a compromise here where the donation of the 6 acres or something close to the 6 acres would be possible. The other thing I would say is I was surprised at the first exhibit here when I looked at the relationship to the size of this triangle in relationship to the whole Breakneck Hill conservation land. You can see that triangle is very big. So, and you can see, you know, the relates. So like I said, the second one is just a sample subdivision plan. And I'm really glad to see the possible progress of being able to achieve both things. So I'd like for the developer to be able to have a successful project and it also be palatable to the conservation people.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think procedurally wise, I think we want to address the request to withdraw the special permit first. So I don't think I hear any concerns regarding doing that from any board members. So I think, having said that, then I think we need a motion to approve the, or no.
To allow.
Motion to allow withdrawal without prejudice of the special permit to remove the condition.
Why is it?
Just the 2019.
Yeah.
Just the
Okay,
2019.
I make a motion to withdraw without prejudice the request
The special permit.
that requests that the special permit be modified to withdraw the 6
Yeah, the
acre
2019, yeah, yep.
donation.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Oh, we have
I love it.
a motion and a second. All right, all in favor, respond with aye, opposed nay. Doug?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
And Williams, aye. Okay. Taking care of that. That has been approved. I think I think clearly the feedback from the board is, all right, let's continue that, I believe, right? Let's go ahead. I think we would all love to have, obviously, a clear plan and something we can go forward with. But I think the timeline you're giving is could give us some opportunity to get some things done. And I think everybody kind of made mention of that. So I think that would be acceptable. The question is then, I think, when we would then need to continue. And the question would be to when,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's kind of the
Yeah, it's the sort of the crux of it.
end of the month is crazy. That's never gonna work.
Yeah, no, the end of this month would be tough.
But I also don't want to run afoul of any timetables. I don't want to miss anything.
Right, understood.
Well, sitting here now, I'm wondering about maybe, say, the second week of June, so it would be approximately a month. And I defer to the board in terms of when you naturally would be having a meeting as well.
Well,
Well, I mean, part of it is, and I know you can't really say for certain, but, where do you think you really be in 4 or 5 weeks from now, in terms of achieving what you were talking about?
Yeah, I think in good shape in terms of having developed a plan that we think could work and having had a chance to brief board members one-on-one and
Okay.
begin to get folks' feedback.
Right, okay.
June twelfth works well for me. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, works good. I'm good with 12th.
Yeah, I think
The twelfth,
June, yeah, and we have a meeting already scheduled for the 26th,
that I can't make.
right? So the 12th,
Let's put it on for the 12th.
12th,
I may be remote, but I should be able to make it.
Doris, how's that work for you?
It's actually gonna work. Okay. I can't be there in person. I'm
okay.
overseas.
Yep, works for me.
Okay.
Okay,
While we're together, just one explanatory note about how we view different boards and commissions weighing in on this. Set aside the land donation and the idea of changing the concept plan. We knew with respect to the proposed location in front of you and what the peer reviewer will start looking at, that we were going to have to be in front of this board, the Conservation Commission, and the Planning Board. And we see that because, of course, we have to be in front of this board because of the nature of the statute. We'd have to be in front of the commission because of any proposed work in any wetlands buffer. And then, given that this is already a site plan property with the office buildings on it, we've heard from Attorney Tallerman and the planning board chair, and we agree about being in front of the planning board to modify that site plan, right? To address whatever the stub or remnant is based on how the lot changes due to the 40B. And so we've always thought we were going to be in front of all three. And we still think we would be in front of all three, even if we are able to come up with a new concept. What we may be asking for would be different depending on, the final layout, but we still would be in front of all three.
Have you analyzed and might still be in front of you, obviously keeping the planning board proceeding to a site plan approval would be preferable for you all. Is there any, if, let's say you added a 4 or 5 story building on the lower portion of the property, is that kicking you into any other permitting process before the planning board? Or do you think that would be it's still just the ZBA? So let's say, for example, because you'd probably have to subdivide within the lot,
Yes.
within the lower portion of the property. We can deal with this later. I know you want to have the least number of stops possible with discretionary permits. So by taking away a portion of that via subdivision in some way, because you don't want to tie up the office buildings into a 40B scheme, it tips. I mean, we can kind of blue sky that later, but it's a consideration for you all, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Because right now, you're only proceeding if it was just 40B and taking aside the modification of prior decisions on the 6.2 acres. It's just site plan approval, which is a lot less of a lift.
Yes, that's the hope.
Okay, all right. Okay. You still owe us some wetlands waivers too at some point, right? From our first meeting?
Yep. We did submit a revised waivers list in late March.
Okay.
With a larger package,
Okay,
which I think our intent was for those to address the concern that had been raised.
okay. So Jay, just out of clarity, you think, based on what you've heard, trying to continue with peer review of, say, like a traffic study is probably
certainly
reasonable?
traffic. I mean, the thing they won't be able to do on traffic too much is internal circulation.
Right.
But they'll certainly be able to do access in off of Route 9 and
Right.
get you some
In and out,
stuff
yep.
there into the edge of the property where it'd be either a sharp left turn or or going all the way in the back. So those, certainly the volumetric stuff.
Yep.
Should be fine. Civil is the one that's more nebulous
Yeah,
right now, I think.
right.
But
Right, okay,
I can share with the board that we have shared the metrics of this proposed building, whether it be up the hill or on the flatland, with MassDOT, and they've confirmed that there will not be a MassDOT permit needed.
okay.
is its
thank you.
existing curb cut?
Yes, it's an existing curb cut, and the added flow does not reach the level under the
Got it.
Massachusetts regulations to require a further permit.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. So what's the availability here on the 12th, you know? Not sure.
I don't know, but it'll either be here.
Here or the safety building, yeah, okay.
Right.
All right, so I think formally we have to approve to continue.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
quick comment. Sorry, Doris, go ahead.
Yes, we need to, if we're ready, to take a vote on continuing.
So before that, just a quick comment, because again, I think something that Paul Carter brought up definitely is on my list of items too. So first of all, appreciate you guys did the cross sections, which were really helpful, and you did respond to a lot of the other comments. And as Jay said, the wetlands, waivers we still need, but again, I am used to a subdivision plan would be required, or at least what waivers you need, right? Because if this board is approving it, and I don't think we've actually seen what waivers you have for that subdivision road. So I'm just, putting it out there. I feel like we're still missing some information on that. Because again, I think you do need, because again, this does become if you create another parcel, it does become a subdivision road, which it is not today. So in order for us to grant that, I think it's helpful for us to know, what are you asking waivers for, which obviously isn't part of what the comprehensive permit allows for things to be waived. So I don't think we have that specific list. I think everything else you guys have been very clear and responsive to. So but then my only comment would be is I think it definitely is good to release, once you guys select traffic engineer, we should release him to do that, right? Because that'd be a good topic at the next.
Right.
And we can also focus on other things that might be building specific. I do have some comments on the building, but, so at least we can cover that. But then I think we kind of wait on the civil a little bit to see where you guys are going to come back with a plan. I know you might want us to go forward with that at some point, but I'm just trying to be efficient with, going back to your comment, being efficient with time for.
I just don't want to be here to be.
Yeah, so, but at least I think that's a good plan for the next meeting, if you guys agree, so.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
thoughts.
Along those lines, one of my takeaways from tonight sitting here is that when we next meet with engineer to talk about the new concept, I'm going to ask him to look at the subdivision rules and regulations.
Yep.
And specifically to identify for us which ones have not been met in terms of the plans that have been
Yeah,
submitted.
because I think that's the part of the decision we'll be making is, what waivers we're actually granting as part of it, right? So the better clarity, I mean, and again, you may not be ready because the plan might be changing, but that really brings clarity to us that we know specifically we're waiving this. And the implications of that too would be helpful for us, so,
Understood.
but thank you.
Very brief.
Mr. Carter.
Their traffic study is more than adequate, as Brian points out, they don't require a change in the access permit. It's really the civil.
Yeah, and wetlands, I think will be important for conservation.
I
as well.
appreciate board's members regarding the subdivision plan. It is critical, so. we need to get that.
Okay. All right, then,
Make a motion to continue this. What's that?
June 12th.
June 12th?
June 12th, yep.
Make a motion to continue this till June 12th?
Second.
All right. All those in favor,
Second.
respond with aye.
We have to
Against?
second it.
Nay? What?
You're right on time, Doris.
What did she say?
I'm paying attention. I've got the time difference.
Little delay.
There's just a little bit of a delay.
Oh,
Doug,
it's funny.
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Doris,
Aye.
and Williams, aye. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice seeing you.
To-
Yeah.
Oh, we do need a motion. We don't have anything else on the agenda, correct?
No, unless you want to discuss. the other one.
And you've continued both hearings are covered by that, right? 'Cause-
Yes, right.
Can you hold
What
on?
was that? I wasn't paying attention.
Well, this technically, there's two items on our agenda, so I think the
I think
motion.
it was
continues
implicit
both.
that everything's
Implicit,
getting moved,
yes,
right?
yeah.
The other one doesn't have the timeline.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what do you think?
David?
Oh, and
Oh,
David, the
Hello?
curfew is still with you from the first hearing, so I think between the three of us, we can, I think we can sort of share, select who we want to do with that, because at the very first meeting,
yeah,
they delegated it to you.
Right.
So we can dig in and
okay, yeah, I took a look at it before the meeting. I had some thoughts, but maybe probably requires a little bit more.
yeah, I have
review.
not spent much time looking
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to, certainly want to hear your opinion on that, so, okay. Okay, all right, thanks, Jay.
We need to close the meeting?
Well,
We
we don't
can.
want to close the meeting, but we do want to adjourn.
Yeah.
But we don't need to discuss 250 publicly, do we? Like, just when to schedule it.
Figured it here.
Yeah,
Whether you-
Is our, is
yeah,
the
no,
meeting
let's
of
do
the-
that, but let's adjourn.
What are we
first.
doing? Yeah, of
Sure.
course. Thank you.
Carter. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think we do have there is something to discuss, but I think we can adjourn first and then we can just talk. It doesn't need to be public, so. Paul's not here, so,
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
okay, motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. Doug,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mike, Doris,
Bye.
and Williams, aye. Okay, so, we can
Meeting's adjourned.